This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're fortunate tonight to have as our guest one of my longtime friends and one of the most Republican stalwart Trump supporters in the state of Alabama and probably the country, Perry Hooper Jr. Perry O. Hooper Jr. He and I served in the legislature together for almost 2 decades in the 80s and 90s, and Perry has been a Republican since birth. I know the whole state's mostly Republican now, probably 60-40 Republican, and the legislature's 2/3 Republican, and every constitutional office is Republican. But Perry was a Republican before it was cool. His daddy was the first Republican Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and first Republican probate judge of Montgomery County. Yeah. Perry was born and raised here in Montgomery, folks, and his mama was the sweetest lady you've ever seen, Miss Marilyn, and his daddy was one of the finest gentlemen I ever knew, Mr. Judge Perry Hooper. He was elected probate judge of Montgomery County on the Goldwater landslide in '64. Perry was been a Republican all your life, hadn't you?
I never had a chance to be a Democrat.
you know,
I came out as a big R.
You sure did. I mean, if anybody's got a Republican pedigree in this state, it's Perry Hooper Jr. I mean, before it's cool, you know. Oh, Bill Dickinson used to say that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He won in '64 with your daddy. He ran for Congress.
I think it was Dickinson and Dad and probably either Jim Martin or Bill Joseph that were in the phone booth.
They were. Perry, you know Bill Dickinson, in my opinion. I know you both are friends.
Yes.
But I believe he's the best congressman the 2nd District's ever had. He rose to be the ranking Republican on armed services.
He did.
You and I both worked for him.
Yeah, you know, Congressman Dickinson was a people guy. You know, he always was with the people. You know, he spent time. You know, I'd almost refer to him as like a blue-collar Republican. He loved people, and he loved the military. And he did a great job as chairman of, I guess he was the minority leader. Ranking Republican on armed services, and did a great job.
He was ranking Republican all those years, and some old liberal guy from Michigan was chairman. And if he'd stayed 2 more years, the Republicans took the Congress the year he quit in '92.
He'd been the main deal, but he still did a lot of great things, and we ought to be thankful for him for Fort Rucker and Maxwell and all the wonderful military bases we have in the great state of Alabama.
Bill was elected in '64, and so was your daddy.
Yeah.
As probate judge. And Bill Joseph was elected chairman of the county commission. It was a Republican sweep that year. Jim Martin went to Congress after losing that Senate. Well, he really won that Senate race in '62. Jim Martin was a great guy.
Oh, he was a great guy, Steve, and you'll like this. You probably appreciate this more than anybody. That I remember Dad during '64, he had a saying. It said, let's put Barry in the White House and Perry in the courthouse. That was Barry Goldwater, remember? Let's put Barry in the White House and Perry in the courthouse.
Do you remember that campaign? How
you know,
old were you?
Vaguely.
You were born in what, 55?
I was about 9 years old. 9 years old. But I can remember it, you know, Dad shaking hands and getting out, and you know, Dad was a people person.
You're the oldest of 4 boys.
Right. Got Walter, Conwell, and John.
Now you and Perry's children are all boys.
Yes, I got.
Tell us about your children. One of them's an orthopedic surgeon here now.
Yeah, my oldest son, Perry Hooper III. He played football at Auburn. Then he went on to medical school, and then he had his residency at the Cleveland Clinic, and came back. We're happy he's come back to Montgomery.
Now he's married.
Southern Orthopedics, and he's an orthopedic surgeon, and he's married to True. She was a McGowan, you know.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And she's a wonderful young lady, and she's a pediatrician.
Is that right, here in Montgomery?
And they live at Hampstead. They have 3 children. They have
3 children?
Charlie, she's a girl, her name's Charlotte, we call her Charlie. Then they have Perry Oliver Hooper IV.
Is that right? So you're Perry O. Jr., he's Perry O. III, and you got Perry Oliver IV.
And then they have a little baby Reese that's about 8 months old.
What do they call little boy Perry O. IV? What do they call him?
They call him Perry or P4 or you know, stuff like that.
How old is he?
Right now he is he's 3.5. Excuse me.
Now you got other son that's here too.
Now Thomas, he lives at the Waters.
Right.
And he's married to a little pretty girl,
We met.
Autumn.
She's a pharmacist at CVS.
Well, no, that's another one. Autumn, he met Autumn when Thomas was playing football at South Carolina, and she is. They have 3 children.
They live out the Waters.
They have Thomas Jr., who is 6, and then they have Miles. Miles is a piece of work now. He's a character. I've never seen a kid I've got a picture of him in his diaper kicking a field goal.
Is that right?
He's 2.5 years old, you know. It's over the couch and everything, but he's left-footed. It's amazing. But we have fun with him, and little Tom, he's got me back at the ballpark because he's now playing t-ball and soccer, and so it's fun.
So y'all got 2 sons and 7 grandchildren here.
But I got another son, my baby, Davis.
Davis is here too.
And he played football at Auburn. He played with Cam Newton. And
so all 3 of your boys are here.
Yeah, Davis is in Auburn, but it's almost like it's like being
that's
here.
Right, yeah.
And
he's
he has
in the
2
construction
children.
business. That's right.
He is. He's
right.
in construction business. He's got two children.
His wife's a pharmacist.
I
met her with you one day. You know.
Yeah, he's got Meadow. She's a pretty little girl, real pretty. And then Harris, and Harris is a tough little nut. He's like.
Well, Perry, you and Judy are the most handsome couple in the state.
Well,
Judy was a cheerleader at Auburn. You were at Auburn.
I was so proud of Judy. You know, Steve, I've never told you. When she was a cheerleader at Auburn, she was rated the #1 All-American cheerleader in the nation. Number one.
She also taught cheerleading at St. James or
Trinity.
Trinity, yeah.
She was the cheerleader sponsor at Trinity, and a lot of her girls, like the little Magoo girl, was a cheerleader at Alabama. She taught her. Little McCorkle, Amen daughter, she was a cheerleader at Auburn. She's trained a lot of those girls that have become wonderful college cheerleaders.
Perry, so all your children are right here in the Montgomery Auburn area.
Yes,
I bet Judy loves that.
We still hunt and fish. Matter of fact, I came back especially for you. I've been down in Destin, Rosemary Beach, and we've been spending a lot of time with all the grandbabies down there, having a lot of fun. But
Judy down there now?
She's down there, and I just talked to her before I come on your wonderful show. She was with Miles. He's taking his afternoon nap, and all the other bambinos are on the beach. But we're just, God's been good to us. I'm a lucky man.
I love getting y'all's Christmas card every year because that's the most attractive couple, family.
I appreciate that.
Remember when we were in the legislature, we'd go to the beach together, and those little boys we'd play football on the beach.
Oh, I got pictures of you. They're throwing you a football, and you're diving out there in the ocean and stuff.
Well, they little boys.
Yeah. We had so much fun together. Steve.
I know it.
We spent so much time with your girls and my boys just having fun. That was like yesterday.
I know it. Now
it's
we're
like
old men.
Well, it's amazing. I got 3 boys.
We were young.
I got grandbabies. Yeah, it's amazing. But life is good. The good Lord's been good to us.
Yeah, you're good health and everything. Perry, like I say, you've been a Republican for school. Talk about all the Republican conventions you've been to. Since we're going to culminate, folks. We're talking about. Perry's been an advocate and a supporter and a stalwart leader in the state for the Trump campaign back in the last election, 2016, and continues to be close with the president. And he's a Trump delegate. But I want to talk about the convention, but I also want to talk about past conventions.
Okay.
What was your first Republican convention?
My first convention was Ronald Reagan.
What year was that?
First of all, he was elected in 1980 and then re-elected in 1984.
Did you go to the first convention or the second one?
I went to the second one. That was my first one. I think I was like 24 years old or something like that. And it was he was such a great speaker and a great motivator. And remember at the time, this country was just, double-digit inflation. We were worried about the military. We had the hostage situation, and then here comes Ronald Reagan, and one of the greatest presidents of all times.
Yeah, he was.
And I really enjoyed that. But that was my first convention, and it was dynamic. I loved every bit of it.
Did your daddy go too? Did he go to the convention?
Yeah, he was there.
Did Bill Dickinson go?
Dad was chairman of the convention in 1976, of course. I was in college and having a big time at Auburn at that time, but Dad stayed real active. He was Republican National Committee man for about 24 years.
That's right, yeah.
But so he was, there wasn't a convention he wasn't having a major part of. He was always part of a Republican National Convention. But that was a good one. I was delegate to one of George Bush's.
Senior and junior.
There was one time I was not, and that's when I remember I came out for Jack Kemp.
Oh yeah.
For president.
That's right. Big. You really were for Kemp. Big.
Right, and I was chairman of his campaign in Alabama. He didn't get nominated, but I loved the guy. He was great. And then later on he was a VP candidate with Bob Dole, and I was a delegate to that convention, and I was delegate this last convention with Donald J. Trump.
Did you get to know George Bush Senior and Junior both?
I knew George. I knew them both because of Dad. And Big George called Dad Judge. He always say, "How's the judge doing, Perry? Oh, tell the judge that I said hello." I mean, they were close. They were very close. And George W. That goes way back. When I was a little kid, I remember Mom used to tell me that George W. He came down here to work for Red Blunt's campaign,
and
Dad, Mom said he usually was in charge of going to get everybody pizza and beer. That's what George W. did.
That was his job.
Back then during those days. But
she remembered that.
Yeah, she did.
There've been stories about that, books written about them. What his time in Montgomery.
Yeah,
when he was campaigning for Red Blunt.
Oh yeah, Red Blunt, and Dad was of course very involved with that. But I love the Bush family. They're great people.
He ran for the U.S. Senate one time.
He did. Dad was probate judge and then got re-elected probate judge. Then he decided to run for U.S. Senate, and a lot of people were involved in his campaign then, like Jeff Sessions and different people all over. And Dad won the Republican primary by a landslide, but he lost to Jim Allen, who actually became a great senator.
Yeah, he was a real conservative
at the beginning.
When Democrats really were conservative.
Right, right. But anyway. And then Dad became a circuit judge, and then ultimately, like you'd mentioned, he became the first Republican Chief Justice in the state of Alabama. But these conventions, I've served on the platform committee where we develop a platform that the president of the Republican Party and candidates would run on. I've served on the rules committee that sets the rules of the convention and so forth, and so it's been exciting, and it's a little different this time now.
Well, that's what I want to talk about.
A little different this time.
Tell our viewers what's going to happen next week. I mean, this COVID thing is the doggonest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. It's changed the whole world. So the conventions aren't going to be anything like. Explain that to our viewers when the convention starts next week. Who's going to be there? What's going to happen? Trump's not even going to be there, is he?
Well, two things. First of all, before I say that, I'm praying that we doggone have football this fall. I tell you that right now. That gives people excitement. They want to see big hits. They want to see touchdowns. It's just the American way. And I know the Big Ten isn't going to play or the Pac-10, but the SEC football, I got confidence they're going to be playing.
I hope so.
And I think it'd be good for America. Steve, because of this COVID thing, they canceled the convention that was going to be in Jacksonville. But the week before the convention, the Republican National Committee was planning to meet anyway in North Carolina at Charlotte. So this time, they canceled the convention, and Terry Latham, who's our chairman, and our Republican National Committee man and Republican National Committee woman, and Andrew Sorrell, who's chairman of our delegation, and two of the people that were on the credentials committee, 6 of them, are going to go to Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're going to give them our proxy vote, and they will nominate the president, Donald J. Trump.
On a live forum, an actual forum.
On the live forum on the 24th of this month.
Which will be next Monday, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's the big show. It's going to be a surprise. I can't tell you where the president is going to do his nomination. There's a lot of speculation. You hear he may do it at the White House. He may do it at Gettysburg. That's all speculation. But it's going to be a great surprise, and I thought it's going to excite the American voter.
And there's no challenge to Vice President Pence or anything.
No, absolutely not. Mike Pence has been a great leader for the president. He's done a magnificent job being chairman of the task force on COVID. He's a good man, Steve. He understands state needs.
Yeah.
All the governors seem to like Mike Pence because we always, being in the legislature, we love the government that was, and people like it, the government closest to the people, us being legislators. That's what Mike Pence brings to the White House. He's close to the people, and he has been a great leader for President Trump.
Perry, you were talking to Ronnie and some others before the show. When we were growing up, there wasn't this vast philosophical difference or partisanship that there is now. There's a lot of difference in the National Democratic and National Republican Party.
There's no
and
question.
The country is just totally divided. You're either in one camp or the other. There are very few swing voters. So talk to me about the election and how you see it happening. And we're a very Republican state, but talk about all the difference in issues with guns, abortion, everything, police enforcement. I mean, if you will be a Trump advocate and delegate and Republican leader in the state, and I know we're probably going to vote Republican in Alabama, but if you're sent to California, not California because that's a Democratic state, but Florida, for example, a lot of y'all went to Florida last time when it was obvious that Alabama was in the bag for Trump and the Republican.
We're going to do that again.
Well, that's the state that matters. I mean, that's a swing state.
Right.
So if you're down there, what is if you're talking to some guy on the beach and he says, well, I don't know what I am, how would you convince him?
So when your first statement, you're right, Steve. We had a lot of Democrats. We liked Howell Heflin. He had a lot of conservative values. He was pro-gun. Mm-hmm. He understood the 10th Amendment, states' rights, and things like that. There's no Howell Heflins left in the United States Senate today. Zero.
Even the guy from West Virginia is not even Manchin. He's not.
No, he's signed off just like Biden has. He has signed off on the liberal, almost anti-American agenda. It's the worst I've ever seen. I used to have a lot of good conservative Democrat friends, just like you did. They do not exist anymore in America, and to me, it's a simple decision to make, or it's simple to talk to somebody like on the beach, and say, if the guy says, are you pro-life? Yes. Do you support having guns and not liberals taken away? Yes. Do you support a strong military? Do you believe in peace through strength? And then say, well, this is exactly what the Republican Party stands for, but the other side does not. They don't believe in any of this. Matter of fact, Biden is talking about appointing that bozo, what's his name, from Texas, to be head of to recommend what he should do with gun rights. The
O'Rourke guy?
Yeah, O'Rourke. So it doesn't make sense, because I talk to people all the time, and you do too, and they're always saying, Perry, why can't we? It seems like the Democrats and Republicans could get together and work together to get some good things passed. Well, as long as the Democrat Party is supporting that way left agenda, that's not going to ever happen, because that's not the way most people think in this country. And somebody either needs to run, they nominate somebody at their convention that could be a moderate, but there's no moderates in the Democratic Party today. And the only option people have, whether you're a moderate or a conservative or an ultra-conservative, is in the Republican Party today. There's nothing left on the Democrat side. And you've heard that story.
Oh, yeah.
Some given Democrat will say, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, they left me, So that's kind of where things are today. And now it's up to the Republican Party to get that message out. And it's not the popular vote. It's not that counts. It's the Electoral College. It's the battleground states. It's Florida. It's North Carolina. It's Pennsylvania. It's Ohio. It's Minnesota. It's Michigan. Those are the states that matter. And if you recall last time, I think the president got a lot more than we anticipated. A lot of those states, he ended up with, what, 340 electoral votes? You need 270 to win. He ended up with like 340 plus delegate votes. So that's what he needs to concentrate on. He concentrates on that, and I'm convinced that's what Ronald Romney and the Republican National Committee will do, is concentrate on those battleground states. So we will win this election, and I feel like we will. All those battleground states right now, I think 60 or 70% of the battleground states we're ahead in. The ones we're behind in, he's like a point or two behind, and which is in the margin of error. And you had mentioned something earlier. It's who gets the vote out. We're pretty good at turning out the GOTV, getting the vote out, and I'm convinced Ronald Romney and the Republican National Committee will do a great job doing that.
Well, the turnout is going to be the key. I think that, especially those battleground
Yep.
states.
Yep.
Florida, Ohio, you mentioned them, Michigan, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
That's where the race is won and lost. Do you foresee Trump getting the same 60% that he got in Alabama last time? I don't think it may be. I think it'd be just as high.
I said this once before, that I told the president this when he asked me about Tommy Tuberville, would he win this election? This was about a year ago. And I said, well, you know, Tommy's was a former coach at Auburn University, and there's two things that are popular in Alabama. One is Donald J. Trump, SEC college football, Mr. President. I said, not necessarily in that order, but those two things go off the page. People love Donald J. Trump in this state. And not only will they vote for him, not only is there a huge silent majority in this state, there's people that get in a foxhole for him. There's people that will fight for Donald J. Trump.
Well,
they love him.
If you're a Republican, you should, because if you're talking about delivering on a Republican philosophy, he's done it. He said what he was going to do, and he's done everything he said he was going to do. He
has told them. He has told the people. He believes in what he backs up what he says. But nobody had any idea this COVID thing was going to come about. I mean, look at what this man has had to deal with. Pelosi and them impeached him in the House. Then he had this COVID thing, and then but prior to all that, he had to deal with that Russia crap, you know.
Yeah.
So this man is a strong-willed guy. He's got more energy than anybody I've ever seen in my life.
And he's 75 years old.
Yeah, and he doesn't stop. He is Biden sits in a dungeon all day, you know, but this guy is out there. I mean, one day he's in Michigan. The next day he's in Gainesville, Florida. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, but he's a good guy. Steve, you would like him. He's no different than me and you. He'd sit here and be talking just like me and you right now. His kids are great. Donald Jr., he loves to hunt and fish. Eric loves to hunt and fish and play golf. And Ivanka's probably one of the smartest ladies I've ever met, and very articulate. That's a great family. Great family.
Well, if the main thing that he's accomplished more than people realize, the tax cuts, but the two Supreme Court justices, those guys will be there for decades. They're in their 50s, and to get them on the Supreme Court is a big thing. And if you're
conservative, since you mentioned the Supreme Court, you know, Roberts hadn't been taking the right side lately.
No, he hadn't.
So it's extremely important. That's another great reason that people in this country should vote for President Trump, because they've seen what Kavanaugh has been able to do, and Gorsuch and those folks. So this is important. He get one more vote, one more appointee confirmed in the United States Supreme Court, then we have the majority. That's huge.
Well, it really is, because if you look at a president's legacy, and you look at the course of history and the effect on public policy, there's no greater power than appointing a Supreme Court.
No question.
And he picked good, mainstream, quality guys that were not extremists. You know, you couldn't say these guys are. I mean, they had a strong record of being jurists for years, and they were well qualified, and they'll be there for years to come.
Right.
And like I said, they're in their 50s, they'll be there forever. But that's been the hallmark. There've been a lot of other things he's accomplished, but if you're a conservative and a Republican, and you look at that, that's going to be. You look back 10 years from now, that's going to be the biggest thing. And like you say, if he's reelected and he can get a couple more appointments, or at least one, if Ginsburg retires.
Let's not say if. He will get elected.
Okay.
Donald J. Trump will get elected, and he will appoint some of these justices that you talked about that have that philosophy.
Well, throughout the whole thing, not just Supreme Court, but throughout the entire nation.
I don't have the exact number, but I think he has appointed and had confirmed over 110 men and women to the federal bench.
I know it.
That's amazing.
A lot in Alabama.
He has set a record with that.
They've done a remarkable job, and Senator Shelby's been involved in it.
He has.
With the, he's changed the entire judiciary of Alabama
Right.
to young Republican judges
Well,
for the next 30 years.
One other thing I've got to mention to you. It's one thing to appoint. It's another thing to confirm. That's why it's important that we elect Tommy Tuberville
It is.
to the United States Senate. I've talked to I'm part of this majority makers with Mitch McConnell, and we usually meet once a month up there. We hadn't been able to the last 2 months because of COVID. We usually do it by telephone or conference call or Zoom and all that. But that Tommy Tuberville, his election and winning that race could be the reason why we keep the United States majority. Do you realize
It's
that?
very important.
Miss Collins is behind right now. The lady from Nevada is behind right now. And I don't think we have but a 3 Senate majority right now in the United States Senate. So if we lose 3, Tommy Tuberville could be the reason, getting him elected will be the reason we keep that Republican majority. And that's something that I think needs to resonate big here in Alabama.
It sure does. Well, Pierre, our time
Yes,
is
sir.
up. It goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
Man, I love you, brother. I
love you.
appreciate you, and you have a great show, and I appreciate you inviting me.
Well, folks, we're very fortunate to have as our guest a Trump delegate and supporter and stalwart leader in the state for Alabama Republican Party, Perry Hooper Jr. Perry O. Hooper. We thank you, viewers, for watching. We thank Perry for being with us, and hope you tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you, Steve.
He goes by in a hurry, doesn't he?